Hello and welcome. This is the Goal is AFL podcast. Back again, post-gather round. We have had one of the best weekends of football that I can remember for a long time. We've got some teams who are off to hot starts. We have some teams who are off to dismal starts, let's just, to say the least. And we are both very excited to get into chat about this round of football. Sorry for being a little bit late with this podcast. I've been very busy actually down at Gather Round. We've talked about that during the podcast, but Caleb has also been, busy with work and it takes two to tango, as they say. So how are you going,
Caleb? The joys
Caleb?
of working on weekends, am I right?
We both work on weekends, so that kind of sucks. But we definitely, needed to chat about this Gather Round. It was one of the most exciting rounds, and I think it's such a great concept. What did you think of the whole weekend overall?
Absolutely. G'day, everyone. I was very happy with the Gather Round overall. It was one of those concepts that was directly stolen from the NRL. So, it is what it is. But as a concept, I really, really think it's great. And for the South Australian economy, celebrating in a traditional town like Adelaide and its surrounding suburbs, turning it into footy fever, making it feel like Melbourne, where Victoria has always been the host city, host state of the AFL. So transferring that energy and moving it slightly west, I think is a great idea. And even though some of the games were not close in scoreline, there was plenty of stuff to talk about, which we'll get into today.
Yep, and as I said before, I was actually down in the South Australia. I was actually at Barossa Valley, so the 51st venue that has played or hosted an AFL game, an accredited AFL 4 points game. The 51st venue was the Lindock Recreation Park, kind of known as Barossa Park. It was about 50 to 55 minutes on a good traffic day up north. So last year they played it at Mount Barker, which was kind of towards the Adelaide Hills, and this time it was more towards the, northwest of Adelaide. And it was a nice venue. It was a nice weather. I'm going to say it was a little bit hot, but in the non-sunny peak hour time, it was a very nice, warm kind of day. So not typically what we expected, but it was very beautiful out there. Definitely some nice
100%.
restaurants. It was very exciting. And the other two grounds were Norwood, which is a regional, but a little bit more built up than this one, the Barossa Park. And then obviously Adelaide Oval hosted 5 games. Yeah, my bad. 5 games. We had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday at Adelaide Oval. So it was very fun. Shall we get into some of the games, Caleb?
Oh, 100%. Starting off with Adelaide and the Cats, I was surprised by the final result. This was a game I unfortunately wasn't able to watch live because I was working, but it seemed like this was a momentum shifter. Adelaide had control of the football and the scoreline, and then it came back the other way, and the Cats were able to put the scoreline to bed in the last dying moments of the fourth quarter. And that, to me, is a sign of a quality outfit, is when you're able to go away from home, compete in the Adelaide Oval, which is fiercely, full of Adelaide Crows supporters at the moment because they are doing well. When a team is winning games, they always draw a crowd. So it was a great start to Gather Round, Thursday night football, and the Cats got the job done. And after watching the highlights, I'm just purely amazed by Patrick Dangerfield once again, stepping up, scoring 4 goals, plenty of output from the midfield as well. And the Cats pulling off a close one on the first day of Gather Round.
A lot of expectations around the Crows at this point of the season. I know we're only 5 rounds in, but they've played some good football. They've had a couple of close games that they've won and one that they've lost. But they played Geelong in this game, and it felt like this was a tight tussle at the start. Adelaide pulled away, as we can see on the worm, and you then had Geelong just proving too much. And I was actually surprised that they managed to pull away at the end here, just because of the home crowd. First game of Gather Round, just felt like it was Adelaide's night. But then Geelong just kept chipping away, and I watched this one, I think, at a place in Gawler, which is a small town about 10 minutes from the actual Barossa Valley. So we were watching it in a pub, and it was, I guess, if I can divulge a bit, it was nice to be in a state, area. It's just all about AFL. We living in Queensland often have, the rivalry of AFL and NRL, the perceived rivalry, but, NRL is kind of king in Brisbane for the most part. And so it was nice to be in a place where as a footy fan, you can just pretty much know that everyone's going to know what you're talking about and kind of has something in common. So it was really nice, and I really liked watching this game, at a nice pub. But yeah, any other thoughts on some of the performances on this game? I know you liked Patrick Dangerfield's performance, but there was a couple. I like Tex Walker's impact on the game.
100%.
But there was some really nice performances from the Geelong players for sure.
Yeah, the old cats, really.
The old cats.
Yeah, they really were making an impact. But yeah, Tex Walker, that's another great shout out. I thought a lot of question marks were asked early of him in the season. Is he a part of the best Adelaide team? And I think he's proving that he is. He's getting goal contributions. He's making an impact in the forward line, forcing contested football. And that's exactly what you want from your old experienced players.
Yeah.
And I thought Bailey Smith also racking up heaps of disposals, picking up a goal. He's their main star of, new addition into the team. And he's
Max
really
Holmes.
delivering so far. Yeah,
he was
exactly.
Really good.
Darcy Fogarty, I think, has been also kicking plenty of goals for the Crows, which has been hugely important.
Yeah.
And for a high-scoring affair like this one, you couldn't ask for much more from a neutral's perspective. And if you're a fan from Geelong, you're very, very grateful to be coming away from Adelaide Oval with all 4 points.
And we can add 2 extra birds on the field, as well as the 23 of the Adelaide Crows, if you know what I'm talking about, with Bailey Smith giving a bit of a send-off to some of the Crows fans right at the end. Did you have any thoughts on that? Any take on his interaction?
Yeah, I saw it. Look, after the Harley Reid fiasco in the media, I wouldn't be surprised if there's further repercussions for Bailey Smith. Look, I'm not offended by that. To me, it's funny. I think some people in the media like to take these things to the extreme to sort of get the clickbait money out of it. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny. He's giving it back to the fans. The fans want to dish it out. Players can sometimes return it. I have nothing to say further than that.
I can see it from both sides, where some parents would be like, "Oh, my kid looks up to you, and you're doing that," and I'm like, I kind of think, yes, that's true. You need to be a good sort of role model, but also the players get a lot of heat from fans, and also if you as a parent are relying on your football players to teach your kids about how to act, you're probably looking in the wrong space. And I think that if they're the main source of inspiration and not yourself as a parent, not that I'm a parent, but I'm just saying that if a player giving the bird is the thing that's going to tip your kid over to give the bird back to someone, probably looking in the wrong spot and need to probably think about how you're parenting. So that angle I'm not a huge fan of. People are like, oh, you're a role model. I think that role modeling AFL, even sports people, musicians, is fraught with danger because they are, again, human. And I think this was just a
100%.
human reaction to some heat on the field. I think the comment was actually about Dangerfield, and he wanted to stick up for his skipper. So anyway, it was that happened. There was a little bit of a fine, but I don't think there's going to be much more from it, to be honest. I think it was a storm in a teacup on the first game, but then we very quickly moved along to the second game, which was the Collingwood Magpies defeating Sydney. The Battle of the Birds here, 109-78, Collingwood winning. Collingwood, they're pretty much back, I would say. I'd say last year's hangover was a little bit of a blip. You can see, as on the graph there, by halftime it was pretty much over, and Collingwood just continued to push away at the end there. Didn't really seem all that close. This was a very nice jumper game, a lot of people are saying. Myself, the dark Collingwood versus the really, really light white Sydney. I really liked that as an aspect of the game. But yeah, speaking about the actual game, Nick Dacos, of course, had a hugely important contribution, as he usually does. But yeah, Collingwood, it looks like they're back.
Oh, 100%. I think they've got so many class players. It's no surprise that they're, dynamite to watch. You got Bobby Hill in the forward line, kicking plenty of goals. And this, honestly, I'll be honest, I was expecting this one to be a lot closer. The fact that Collingwood did kick away and sort of kept them at arm's distances was very much so like a game that transpired in like a high school bully fashion, the big, strong guy is making fun of the young little kid, and he's just keeping in arm's distance, and the Swans are swinging, but they can't land any major hits. And the Pies just got the job done. And look, I have always been optimistic with their results this season, and I'm expecting them to be towards the top end of the table. And beating
Yeah.
teams like Sydney, they're going to have to do that if they're going to end up in the top 4 this season. And defeating them by 31 points, like it's defining, I think, for the Magpies this season.
The Swans had some good moments, I feel. They did have some good sort of performances and moments in the game. They looked kind of fluid, but yeah, I just think Collingwood just had too much class in the end. And I mean, Collingwood had injuries as well. They had a fair few players out, including like Jordan De Goey, but yeah, their experience. Collingwood, again, a very old and experienced team. Sidebottom, Pendlebury, combined age of like 70 years old, and they were each like two of the best players on the field. So I don't know how they keep doing it, but yeah, that experience and class really led them in this game. And again,
Couldn't agree more.
Collingwood sets up for a great game on Thursday, which we'll get up to later on in the podcast. But yeah, the first versus fourth matchup between the Lions and the Pies, which is always a hotly contested game, a rematch of the 2023 grand final. Historically, even before that, just great grand finals, great matchups. So that it's all leading towards a great game on Thursday, but we'll chat about that a little bit later. The first game on Saturday, which I was actually at, which was pretty cool, was the first game at the 51st venue of AFL, was at the Barossa Park in Lyndoch. The Suns eventually won by 52 points, taking them to 4-0 on the season. And yeah, the game kind of, how do I describe it? It was a bit of a fever dream. It was such a big lead up, to be honest, to make this game happen. And then finally, when it actually happened, and as you can see by the worm there was a moment where it looked like North might actually come back and kind of pull away, but then the Suns just pushed ahead and just showed they've got too much class, looked too big. Even just looking at the players on the ground, the North players just looked a bit smaller. Like it's one of those games where, when you're a kid at footy and the other team rocks up and you're like 10 years old and they've got like guys who have hit puberty at 9 and they're like fully grown adults, and you're just like, oh, this is not going to be fun. That's just kind of what it looked like, and the Suns just outlasted them with their big body kind of physical presence on the field. So that was a good game, and Suns, there you go. Is this the year?
It is the year of the Sun. But no, I couldn't agree more with your assessment. When I was playing footy growing up, I had plenty of that. Coming up against bigger, stronger lads, and thankfully I was fast, so I was able to outrun them. But yeah, the Suns getting the job done by this margin, definitely didn't see that coming, considering how well North Melbourne had started. But the biggest weakness for the Kangaroos in this game was just their contested football and their positioning inside their defensive 50. They just weren't able to close down the Gold Coast Suns well enough, and their small forwards and their big men like Ben King were able to just get into the right spots at the right time and put the ball through the big sticks. And the fact that they were able to sort of blow it out in the fourth quarter and just make it a truly convincing scoreline is, again, a testament to the Suns' capabilities this year, because I don't think many people would have predicted that they'd be in the top 4 already at this stage of the season.
Yeah, no one probably would have stayed. They would have said top 8, but yeah, not top 4. And I think that on the flip side, North being a little bit disappointing after a couple of rounds. People were thinking that they kind of had the goods, and it just doesn't look like they can put together full 4 quarters. And even though just looking at the stats, you can see like 3 of the top 6 stat getters were Simpkin, Davies Uniacke, and Sheasel. Like they had great top level performers are there. They're just, their team as a total can't keep up with guys like the Suns and some of the other. I mean, like, I just don't see them being a team, is what I'm saying. I see a lot of individual flashes. They had some good moments. They got Nick Larkey, who's still, up there in the Coleman medal, but, their team as a total is not quite there yet. And I think they
But that's the sign of any good quality sporting outfit is, are you able to compete throughout the entire time that you're on the field?
Yeah.
And the Kangaroos, like you said, have got some good players, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to another game that happened at Gather Round. But the Kangaroos were just underwhelming.
Yeah.
And they've got to be able to step up when times are toughest and when they're not making the right movements through the corridor and into the forward line. Are they able to do their jobs at the opposite end and keep the other team out? Because if you have a good defense, sometimes that's enough to just get you over the line. But when you're leaking goals like they did throughout this game, like it's just simply not good enough, and it'll cost you points in the end of the day.
And we were chatting jerseys still because there was some new gather round jerseys, and the Suns had their salmon pink, which to me feels very Gold Coast. It's very that color is everywhere on the Gold Coast, to be honest. Like
I liked that particular jerseys,
Yeah.
but there were some true howlers. I thought this weekend.
Well, let's quickly do it. Who what was your top jersey?
I didn't
Not
like the St Kilda jersey
and
at
not
all.
not
I just
every
was like,
team did it. That's kind of interesting to me. Not every team did it. I feel like that should be like every team should put in an effort to make a jersey. It's like you'd sell more, take a swing, that sort of thing. I think only like 11 teams did it out of 18.
So this is where we might be at a bit of an impasse, Harry, because I'm of the opinion I hold very much so a traditionalist perspective with regards to the AFL jerseys.
Yeah.
I think you should have your classic home jersey, your classic away jersey. That should always be the same. It should never change.
Yeah.
And your third/clash jersey, like that can always be mixed up in terms of if a new artist wants to come along and design something different. I'm all for that. But when we start designing jerseys for every single niche round, like gather round, multicultural round, indigenous round, like to me, that is the sign of the capitalistic money grabbing side of the
You're
sport.
a soccer fan. Like they have 6 kits.
And I hate it. And I hate it in the soccer
and
very,
they change
very much.
they change their jersey every year.
I know, and
It's
I hate
ridiculous.
it. I do not like it at all.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So I don't want the AFL to go down that route and be like the soccer teams,
Okay.
because it's very much so determined on sponsors and making money every season off new jersey sales. And like I understand it's a revenue stream, but personally, like you look at some of the classic jerseys like Collingwood's, the Brisbane Lions, Geelong, like you just like. It's almost built into the brain of like the identity of these clubs. You don't want to see it change.
Yeah.
And the Gold Coast Suns and the Adelaide Crows are two of the clubs who in recent years have obviously gone through a rebranding. So that's fine. I'm okay with that. But overall, I don't want to see the sort of DNA of these clubs be changed too much. Okay. So the St Kilda one I personally wasn't a fan of. The West Coast Eagles one also I wasn't a fan of.
A bit odd.
So
I liked the Adelaide one a lot, and I liked the Sydney one.
The Adelaide one was okay. Yeah, it's nice, simple, dark colors. It's not very offensive.
Some people hated the Hawthorn one too. Anyway, we could talk about jerseys a lot, but I think that there was some good efforts. Let's just say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand it. I just don't want to see it become super commonplace, but I think I'm in the minority here. I think it's going to keep going in that direction of just more and more jerseys every year.
Okay. Well, we did speak about one team that had a changed jersey, which was West Coast, but the team that they played, which is the next game, Carlton, definitely didn't change their jersey because, they're the classic navy blues. You got to stay the navy blues, and they finally got their first win, which was 121-50 over the West Coast Eagles at Adelaide Oval. This was an early game, I think it was 12:50 was the start of this game, so sort of a late afternoon kind of sleepy kind of vibe, to be honest. Two very low bottom teams. This was one that, despite Carlton obviously being a top tier team, probably could have been put to like Norwood or something. Just due to here's the thing, Carlton. We knew Carlton were going to be kind of a big draw, whether they were good or bad. But West Coast, we all knew that they were going to be bad, and I feel like this game could have been a classic kind of Norwood game, and put perhaps the next game we'll speak about at Adelaide Oval, even in the twilight, or even 12:50 for the premiers, would have been a bit of a faux pas. But I mean, I guess we can talk about it a bit later when we get to the Lions game, which is our next game. But this game was, what can you really say about it? It was over pretty quickly. You can see in the worm there that the Blues dominated the whole game pretty much. Their top players, Sam Walsh, George Hewitt, Adam Chera, Mitch McGovern, Sard, all of these guys just had monster games and just too good. Eagles, on the flip side, when are they going to win a game? Like, I don't see
great question.
A lot of potential in the West Coast Eagles, which is frustrating because their fans probably thought they were primed for a big year. So, what were your thoughts on this one, Caleb?
I don't have too many thoughts on the game itself because I think everyone expected this. My question that I want to spark some conversation with is, what is the decision-making we think with how the AFL schedules these lineups for gather round? Because obviously a lot of these decisions get made before the season
Yeah.
starts, and we don't quite know how the teams are going to perform and what their capabilities are and how much of a draw and excitement they are going to be. But can it not be a situation of, once you find out, sort of, get a couple games into the season, all right, maybe Essendon Melbourne is not the best for
Yeah.
Saturday night football? Could you not have that same fixture maybe, but move it to another venue and then, upgrade the Lions and the Bulldogs back to Adelaide Oval?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't quite understand the decision-making with a lot of these things. And I know there was a lot of criticism given by the AFL punditry world with regards to some of the lineups this weekend. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the sort of thinking behind these sort of things, and why was it the way that it was?
I mean, I think that we all kind of thought Carlton were going to be really good at this point in the season, so putting them on a prime spot in Adelaide Oval is probably a good thing. But like you said, West Coast is never going to be a big draw, especially in Adelaide. Like, not only are they a bad team, but it's not a Perth team or a Victorian team. I just think that this would have been more suited to a smaller venue, such as Norwood. I think it even sparks the conversation. Maybe could they have a fourth venue? I think that people love the country footy kind of aspect. Could they maybe have a fourth venue? Something like that. I know from a logistics or a broadcaster standpoint, that would be absolute hell. But, I mean, from a fan's point of view, I feel like having another ground probably could open up some more opportunities, but I think that's not the answer at the moment. I think the answer would probably be, just having a little bit more flexibility with the scheduling and the teams. I mean, I don't see a huge problem with this one. The one that we'll talk about a bit later on the Saturday night, Essendon Melbourne, that was a big one. I was like, what is going on there? Like, that was a pretty poorly attended game for a gather round. And I mean, I think you could have put...
If I can jump in,
the
key decision that I think needs to be made by the AFL when it comes to an event like this, where it's neutral venues all around, is that you need to ask yourself which fan base has the best away traveling support. Does the Lions have the most fans that travel on the road? Do the Eagles have the most fans that travel on the road? Which fan base? And it could be some of the Victorian teams. I'm sure there's a lot of diehards that will be happily getting on a plane and following their team. But I think that sort of conversation needs to be had, because you'll have a lot of neutrals, a lot of people from the local Adelaide economy that will rock up and enjoy the footy. But how many North Melbourne fans are going to travel? How many Fremantle fans are going to travel and actually go to their games? Are they going to make the travel, or are they just going to stay at home and watch it on Fox Footy or Channel 7? And I think that sort of conversation needs to be had, because, you've got, like, obviously we're still talking about Carlton West Coast. They have huge fan bases, and yet the stadium was empty. So it's like, are West Coast one of those teams that, even though they're not performing well, do they have away supporters that are willing to do the travel? And I think, based off evidence, the answer is no. So I think going forward, some of those sort of conversations could be had to maybe be the solution to some of these potential problems, because we always want to see full stadiums and great atmospheres. But it was a lot of interesting choices in terms of the fixtures this weekend, that's for sure.
I think there was interesting parts about the fixtures, but I think the biggest one was the Lions playing the Bulldogs, which is, I guess, a good segue to the next game. Obviously, is the Lions and Bulldogs, and the reigning premiers versus one of the teams that was probably going to be fighting for a top 8 spot. I feel that's just a recipe for playing it at the biggest stadium in the round, and clearly the AFL didn't think that way, because they put them at Norwood, 3:20 on a Saturday. Obviously, it was the premier game at that venue, but man, the Lions would have, I feel like they would have packed out. I saw so many Lions fans as well being there, not only at like the Adelaide Oval, but just around the city. Like, there were so many Lions fans, and Lions have a big Victorian kind of fan base as well, and so I think this game would have been awesome on a Saturday prime time at Adelaide Oval. So anyway, we'll speak more about the game actually happening. The Lions definitely came off to a slow start. If we look at the Worm, they definitely were not firing towards halftime. I think it was 35 points. Then it stretched even further in the third quarter, and then the Lions just came back and kicked. I think it was 14 goals in the second half and 4 goals in the first half. That is a monster performance. They came all the way back and even put the Dogs away. Wasn't really a close game at the end. They just kicked away, and it was an awesome kind of game to. I didn't watch it. I wasn't at the game, but I was listening to it and watching some of it on TV. So what did you think about it? I know you watched basically the whole game.
Yeah, it was game of the round for sure. This is a huge problem for the Lions. The fact that they have been starting every single game so slowly and letting the opposition get out to a scoreline that is almost insurmountable. The fact that the Lions have been able to somehow get over the line in the early stages of this season is quite remarkable.
Yeah.
You have to give a lot of credit to Beveridge and his players because they played some really decent footy. I was very, very impressed with how they performed. But at halftime, once the chips are down, obviously, I don't know what Fagan said. He clearly made some tactical adjustments and, got some players to wake up like Eric Hipwood.
Yeah.
And we really just turned that screw. And this is another thing that we touched on earlier about the weather. One of the things that I was very annoyed about was hearing a lot of these Victorian teams and, Alistair Clarkson most publicly complain about the weather and how hot it was. This is the AFL, the Australian Football League. If you want to be the champions of this competition, you need to be able to go to all the different climates around the country. You need to be able to go up north and compete in the heat. You need to be able to go down south in Melbourne when it gets bloody cold on some of those Saturday nights. Yeah. And you need to be able to win. Yeah. And the fact that the Lions have been able to do that, coming from a warmer climate, may have had an impact because my interpretation of the game was that they were on cruise control for that first half, letting the Bulldogs just go absolutely flat strap, pedal to the metal, getting the scoreboard ticking. But then they gassed out. And when Brisbane were able to get control of the football, get it down the wing, play it into the players like Hipwood, who just somehow decided to, flick the dial and score 5 goals, that's what was a huge advantage for us, is being able to cope with that heat and still play our best football. So, again, very proud of the Lions for getting the job done, but it's not sustainable playing this style of football. And I have a lot of respect for the Bulldogs after this game.
You said down the wing. I'd probably say down the straight is what I would say, because it was basically it was a crazy optic, because it's basically just like it's like a square and then 2 half circles on the other side, because it's just like these straight boundaries. It's a tiny, skinny little ground. And people thought that that was probably going to be against the Lions' favour, because you pretty much have to just bomb it into the forward line. But Eric Hipwood stood up. A few other key contributors. You got Logan Morris kicked a few. Cal Archie kicked a few. Rayner had a good game as well.
What a great goal from the boundary line.
Great goal.
Archie.
He had a good shot. Good check side. Who else? Ashcroft. Jasper Fletcher had a great game as well. I'm so happy for Jasper Fletcher being a guy who him and Darcy Wilmot are just so good in terms of the fact that they've come into a side that was already a premiership contender and they just have never lost their spot. They've just it's kind of like, I don't know if you know the New England Patriots. They seem to just, whenever they would bring a player in, they would then start performing well because they knew the level that was expected of them. No shade to other clubs, but if Fletcher or Wilmot were at those clubs, I don't think they'd be nearly as good as if they played at Brisbane, because of the way that Brisbane trains and the expectation they have around their players is so much higher, I feel, than a lot of other clubs. And I think that those guys just fit straight in. Guys like Levi Ashcroft, brand new. I know he's a great player, but I mean, just the way that they work and everything. Hugh McCluggage, another great game. Could be in the Brownlow conversation at this point, Hugh McCluggage, along with a couple of other guys. Yeah, it's been a great season so far in terms of just grinding out wins. I'm not going to say it's been pretty, but we've grounded out 5-0, top of the ladder. I mean, what more can you say?
I agree with everything you said.
Yeah, play better next game. Don't give us a heart attack, please. But we will move on swiftly to the next game, which was the twilight/night game. It kind of went dark around 7:30, 8 o'clock in Adelaide at this time of year. So it was the Melbourne Demons who were the home team, which didn't really feel like that because there was a lot of Bombers fans there. 57-96 was the final score. Essendon pretty much kicking away at the halftime. You can see that was the margin was pretty large. It was. Yeah, it was just around about 35 points and stayed around that for the whole time. So this game was a bit of a fizzler. Honestly, this was probably the worst game of the round. I'm just going to say it was boring. Melbourne, come on, just trade your players, trade Pickett, trade Petrarca, trade Clayton Oliver. It's just not going to happen this year. Maybe one positive for them was their jersey. Some great performances by Essendon players like Sam Draper, Zach Merritt had a good game as well, and I just think Essendon, showed some more class. But I think from what I've seen so far, they'll probably be fighting for that top 8 spot. It wasn't exactly convincing, but a win's a win. And Melbourne, I think you've really got to think about a rebuild at this point.
100%. I had a keen eye on this game because I've made some very bold predictions on both of these teams.
Yes.
And I'm very glad that one of those predictions has come to fruition. I said that the Demons wouldn't win a game until gather round, and that has happened and gone beyond that.
Yeah.
So they're now going to go into round 6 without 4 points.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is truly unacceptable considering the quality that they've got in their team. But personally, like going into this season, the research I did with Melbourne's preseason and all the drama that happened and everything, to me, this is not surprising at all. Like they have so many problems, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's crumbling all around them is, I think, you reap what you sow. And like you said, big decisions have to be made at that football club. And when does Goodwin get sacked? That's my question.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be stupid at this point, to be honest. I think you just gotta let the season play out. Like it just feels like making a change now would just be, it would be foolhardy. Let's just say there's also no one to fire him. They have an interim CEO, so you're gonna have an interim CEO, an interim coach, and a bunch of players who are unhappy, don't want to be there. I think that's just a recipe for disaster.
It is. It 100% is.
I just think you got to have some level of stability.
100%. But hey, the Bombers were flying in this game, and the Demons are in hell. As simple as that.
Well, that's a pretty convincing wrap-up of the Saturday of Gather Round. We had a nice early game. This was 12:05 p.m. kickoff in Adelaide, so 1 o'clock Victorian time. The Dockers were, at the end, too good for Richmond. Had some bright starts, did Richmond. They had the lead, actually, and then around halftime, the Dockers just pulled away. Again, like I kind of said about the Suns and the North, in the heat, just that men against boys type feel. And the Dockers, they got too many big players in their team. Alex Pearce had a great game. Sarong had a great game. Josh Tracy kicked 6 goals. They had some really big performances. And just Richmond, I mean, you can take some kind of solace from putting up a good performance, but this was just pretty much Freo the whole time. It felt like, despite the scoreline not being close, being close towards halftime, it just didn't feel like Richmond were ever going to pull away, and Freo were just biding their time, if you know what I mean.
100%. Yeah. Fremantle, this is again, they should be winning and winning comfortably. So the fact that they got the job done by 61 points is commendable. The Tigers, they've got some potential, but they're always going to be a team that's going to be existing towards the bottom of the table. So I'm not surprised in the slightest with this.
Yeah, this is a pretty convincing game, and Freo with their 3rd straight win. So they've had a nice little resurgence from their 0-2 start. They have, I think they are, where are they right now? They're in 8th. So they're 8th spot, which is kind of where I expect them to be fighting around for the rest of the year. But good on Fremantle for getting off that kind of bad start and pushing on for a few more wins. The next game we had, which I unfortunately didn't get to see any of because, again, working. And this was the Giants defeating the Saints. Pretty high-scoring game, to be honest. Towards the start of the year, everyone was like, St Kilda, what are we doing? Like, where's your forwards? And they've actually found a way to kick a few goals and obviously win 3 in a row. Last week in this game, they got shut down. But your prediction of the Giants not being good this year, I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's definitely is not working out for me in terms of that perspective. But look, I have to say, I watched the fourth quarter in its entirety, and St Kilda, they implemented a change of tactics that the commentators pinpointed quite accurately. Was that, because the scoreline was quite significant, Ross Lyon said to his players, play on at all costs. And every time they got a mark on halfback or, at half forward, they were always looking for that hand pass, looking for the quick chains and
Yep.
moving it as quickly forward as possible. And they were able to get a couple goals back and make the scoreline semi-respectable.
Mm-hmm.
But the Giants were just too good, man, getting plenty of goals. Like, the Giants are good. Now, I have to say it, the Giants are very, very good.
They're very good. They had a fair amount of good contributions. They had, Lockie Ash, Callum Ward, Tom Green, Toby Green, all the Greens, the Blues and the Browns, and they just they easily beat the Saints here. It wasn't really close, even though the scoreline at the end, as you can see with the Worm, St Kilda came back a little bit. I just don't think
And
that...
Jesse Hogan, with
Hogan.
a broken thumb coming off that, like, he's still a menace up forward. So,
Yep.
yeah, lots of talent at the GWS Giants, that's for sure.
Yep, they got Jake Stringer got his first goal for the new team, which is the Giants, and yeah, so they got weapons. They got Toby Green, obviously, their captain, doing great stuff, and yeah, I think the Giants are going to be definitely in the top four this year, but going off some of those games, and it creates some good narratives around their upcoming games. I think they've got a game up against the Lions and a few other big Victorian teams that are going to be very exciting. I always like it when the Giants are good and being able to push some of those Victorian teams and just showing that they are a force to be reckoned with. So that is the Giants. And I mean, I'm happy for the Saints as well with their kind of good performance towards the end and towards the start of the game. Just need to find a way to put together four quarters to do St Kilda more consistently. We have our last game of the round, which was a barn burner. 121-91. This was Port Adelaide defeating the Hawks. There wasn't many planes flying around in this game. It was pretty much just goals, to be honest. The Port Adelaide got out to a huge hot start. They were leading like 55 points at halftime. And man, that was a crazy start that no one really saw coming, and then they kind of petered off a little bit towards the end. And Hawks came back with a little bit of strength. Obviously, the Hawks are still a good team. I'm not saying people were really disappointed with Hawthorn. I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense. It's gather round. It's Port's home ground. They're going to get up for it. I just think this is one of those games where you can't read too much into it. Hawks will be good. Port probably still going to be just outside the top 8, maybe just in the top 8. But I think that this game was a great game, especially being there. It was packed, absolutely packed. And Adelaide kind of just came to life for this whole experience. And yeah, Adelaide Oval, if you've never been to go and watch a game, you should. It's awesome.
I would love to go one day, but I was sitting on the couch for this one, and I was just shocked. I could not believe what I was seeing. Just Port Adelaide got off to the most electrifying of starts, and they did not take their foot off the pedal for the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawthorn just had no answers. And the amount of mistakes that they were making, just clumsy efforts, misplaced passes, not marking the opposition properly, poor structural setup.
Yeah.
Just so many basic fundamental issues from the Hawks. And, seeing things like there was one key moment where Sicily, the captain of the Hawks, is playing in defense, and he lets his man just run off him and get involved in the contest. And he just stays in full back, right in the goal square. Yep. And then his man, because he's the spare man, gets the ball from the contest, snaps, and kicks the ball right over his head. And it's just simple things like that are just purely unacceptable. And Ken Hinckley's men, they must have been so ready to go for this game, because they just came out of the blocks like a stud, and they raced to the finish line with great they were very formidable. Yeah. And I didn't anticipate this at all. And the Premier of South Australia, who directly requested this to the AFL for the closing game of the gather round, he would have been bloody happy about this, that's for sure.
The Hawks were also, in context, were missing one of their best players, which was Will Day. I think some people were using that as an excuse as well for their poor performance, but I don't think that's warranted. Just one player out of a team of 23, like, that's you can't use that as an excuse. And I think that, just the occasion was a bit too big for Hawthorn, which I guess speaks to some of their youth inexperience. And some people might say that that's kind of why they don't think that they'll go too far this year, just because of that youth and sort of the big game experience is a bit lacking. But again, I mean, Port fail in big games too all the time. So it's not one of those like Port are made for this occasion. I just think that this particular day was kind of their... this was their grand final, let's just say, for the year. Like, that was awesome.
There was definitely a lot of bad blood in the grandstands, and a lot of people very, very happy that they could get the one over the Hawks, that's for sure. But hey, this is what we love about footy: the theatre, the drama, the entertainment factor. You know, I know, again, at the end of last season, so many in the footy punditry world, which is, absolutely, dismayed over what transpired at the end of the game that was so famous. But I don't know. I love all that kind of stuff. And when you come into games like this, you put the blockbuster title over it, and it was truly worth it. And the fact that the Hawks were able to come back and get it to a 30-point loss is semi-respectable. But again, this is why I this game I use as the perfect example as to why what the Brisbane Lions are doing is unsustainable. Is that if you get off to a slow start and the opposition gets out to a lead that is just too far, it doesn't matter how good your second half is. The Hawks played really good in the second half, but the scoreline was just too big for them and they couldn't recoup it. And as a result, they walk away from Adelaide and gather rounds with no points. And that's what they deserved.
And that's meaning that this is how the ladder looks towards the end of round 5. We are already 5 rounds into, plus opening round, into the season. It's crazy. We have the Lions sitting on top. Their next game is against Collingwood, which we spoke about before. Is going to be an absolute blockbuster. Very excited about that one. Who do you think is going to win that game, Caleb?
I think the Lions will win.
You reckon? All right,
I
me
think
too.
so.
I'm going to say that too.
I think the home crowd advantage is going to get us over the line. I think it'll be close.
I think
too close for comfort. I think the Lions will win.
I think this will be a great game. It's going to be. I'm so excited for this. Thursday night game just before Easter. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have the next game, which is Gold Coast versus Richmond, which is, this was going to be, I think, obviously you got Richmond ties to Gold Coast with, ex-coach Daniel Rioli, all that sort of stuff. The whole Tom Lynch to Richmond type thing, that sort of ties, but I don't think that this is going to be much of a game. I think the Suns are going to smash them. Next up, we have the Giants, who are sitting in third. They're going to play Adelaide. That is going to shape up to be a great game. What do you think is going to happen in that game? Who's going to win that one?
Oh, I don't know. Is it being played in Sydney or is it being played in Adelaide? I'll look it up here. I've got my AFL website ready to go.
I just think that I think that GWS.
It's Adelaide.
I think GWS will win it. If you were GWS,
man.
Do you reckon if you were GWS, you would have stayed in Adelaide?
100%. 100%.
It was kind of like the Saints last week playing against the Power, and then they said they were going to stay for gather round instead of flying back and forth. So I mean that's if you were going to do that, that's 4 flights to the same place of back and forth, basically within a week. And
surely
I just think
accommodation's cheaper.
you don't know. The AFL teams have big squads. Like they're big squads and lots of support staff, so you never know. But yeah, the GWS is going to play Adelaide at Adelaide Oval, so that's very exciting.
I think the Crows will win this one, actually.
Crows?
I think they'll win.
I'm going to tip the Giants. Again, we spoke about Collingwood, who are moved up to 4th spot against the Brisbane Lions. 6th, we have Geelong, 3-2 on the year. That was a huge win against the Crows, as we said. Their next game is an absolute cracker. That is going to be an amazing game. The Easter always gives us great games. You got typically you've got the Lions, Collingwood. You got the North versus Carlton game on Good Friday. You got the Geelong Hawthorn game on Easter Monday. It's going to be awesome. This is going to be a great game, and no exception is going to be... Oh, sorry, I skipped over Hawthorn. Sorry. Yeah, so Hawthorn Geelong are going to be 5 and 6 playing on Easter Monday, and that's a cracker. I think Hawthorn's going to win it. Don't know how you feel about that. It's going to be at the MCG.
Oh, I don't know. That's, again, another tough one to predict.
I think it's going to be Hawthorn, yeah.
I don't know. I think the Cats.
Okay. All right. That's going to be Easter Monday. I was thinking as well, just while we're on air, just chatting, I was thinking maybe doing like a live stream. something like that, little live stream of the game, just being like, I don't know how you feel about that, and just workshopping here on air. We might think about that. Stay tuned if you guys are interested in that. Let us know in the
Get a
comment
beer in
section down
hand and
below.
watch the footy.
Watch the footy with come watch the footy with us. We are going to come and watch the footy with us, and we might think about doing a live stream if anyone wants to do that. Leave us a comment just down below. But the next thing we're going to be doing is looking at the Adelaide Crows. They are in 7th. They are obviously going to play GWS like we spoke about before. 8th, Freo have climbed up there. They're 3-2. They're going to be playing the absolutely hapless Melbourne Demons next. That is in Perth. No, sorry, that's at the MCG. Sorry. But still, they'll probably have the same amount of people as they probably would in Perth, maybe less, show up for that game. We're going to have St Kilda next, who are in 9th spot. They dropped down. They're going to play Western Bulldogs. That's going to be an actually very exciting game. I'd like that matchup. Who do you think would win that St Kilda Western Bulldogs game?
Based off how the Doggies performed against the Lions, I think they'll win this comfortably.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I think it's going to be the Bulldogs, yes. I'm going to have a look now at 10th spot, which is surprisingly Sydney. I thought they would be a little bit higher at this point in the season, but again, they've had a bit of a hard schedule. Played, Collingwood, Hawthorn, and they've lost a couple games where they probably should have won, but they are sitting there at 2-3, and their next game is against Port Adelaide. That's on a Sunday afternoon, sleepy little 3:20 time slot over there in Sydney, and I think that they're going to win against Port. I think that, like I said, Port will probably be pretty gassed from that last game, and I think that this will be an easy win for Sydney. What do you think?
No, I concur with that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we got actually in this round we've got a lot of like 5-6, close like 11-10, like Sydney, Port, all those sort of teams all pretty much playing each other. Look, and even further down you've got 14-15, Carlton versus North. So that's a little coincidence, so to speak. I don't know if that really means much, but I think you're seeing a lot of the parity in the AFL at this point in the season, and you got Western Bulldogs sitting there in 12th, who we spoke about before. Essendon in 13th spot at 2-2. Carlton, North, Richmond, and Melbourne and West Coast still yet to win a game. So it's pretty interesting. After 5 rounds, you're still seeing a little bit of movement in terms of like you got teams who are undefeated still, and then teams who haven't won a game still. So I thought there was going to be a little bit more even. In terms of like, I didn't think we'd have undefeated or winless teams at this point in the year. I don't know what you think about that, but it's kind of been surprising to me.
That's a good point. I definitely would have predicted that there'd be teams towards the bottom that hadn't acquired a win as of this stage of the season. But in terms of on the top end of having teams that are undefeated, I don't know. It's a good point. I definitely wouldn't have predicted that, but the fact that the Lions have won the first 5 games of the season for the first time in their history is pretty awesome. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I didn't even mention that. It's been the first time in their history. I'm surprised that. I thought Richmond would be one of those winless teams, but yeah, they managed to get one first game of the season. But yeah, I think that all of these teams, West Coast, that Melbourne, it's going to be a hard road, and I'm a little bit surprised that they're winless, but also at this point in the season, I don't see them getting maybe more than 2 wins. I don't see them suddenly flipping the switch. But anyway, that is the round 5 gather round recap, and we're going to have a quick look at some of our votes, which is our 3 votes for Zach Merritt with their win against Melbourne. We had 2 votes Nick Dacos and 1 vote Patrick Dangerfield, who is somehow Caleb's favourite player of all time. Seems to always want to put him in the votes.
Don't throw me under the bus, man. Paddy Dangerfield, he is a quality player. He's earning his votes.
He will go down as one of the greatest players of the 2010s, even 2000s, perhaps of the 21st century. I think when he eventually retires, he's been an absolute legend. So yeah, that's round 5 and preview of round 6. It's crazy. We're already halfway through April. It's getting a little bit cooler here, which is nice. But yeah, it's been wet and a little bit windy around Brisbane the last week. It was hot in Adelaide, so I'm guessing that a lot of teams are very excited to get back to Melbourne, get back to Perth, get back to Brisbane, have a little bit of normalcy about them. I'll tell you, gather round is a bit taxing. Like it's all encompassing. It takes over basically your entire. Not only would these players have had to play the game, they would have had to socialize as well. As not only with their own team, but also other teams and the media and the other players. Like the whole AFL world was basically there. So it's a very taxing kind of time to be an AFL player or fan. But yeah, it was exciting. And a quick turnaround. Thursday night, here we go. Lions Pies. Anything else you want to add before we sign off today, Caleb?
I'll finish with this. I think the fact that Gather Round is in Adelaide is awesome for that state and for that local economy.
Yeah.
But one day, I do hope that Gather Round comes to Queensland and comes to Brisbane. And we spoke about this a little bit last week in terms of when the Gabba eventually becomes obsolete and departs from existence. I would like to see Victoria Park, the brand new stadium, the Gabba, and maybe a third venue, maybe down on the Gold Coast.
I mean, you could have Gold Coast
celebration and a send off.
You can have Springfield,
specific stadium, or Springfield.
Yeah, you can have
there's definitely options out there, but
Brighton
I would
Homes
hope.
Arena.
Yeah, I would hope that the Gather Round comes to Queensland one day, and I think that would be a good time when those two stadiums are. One is being built and one is about to leave. So I think that'd be a nice send off for the Gabba, but we'll see.
Maybe in a few years, but I think first of all you've got to go to a Gather Round in Adelaide to experience it. It's pretty exciting. So I definitely loved my time down there, and it was very fun. But now we're kind of back to real life, and back to the rest of the footy. And you think about it, we're already a quarter of the way through the season. It's crazy, like the regular season. So it's crazy. We're going very quickly. Excited for this round of games coming up. As I said, some exciting, Lions, Pies, Saints, Giants, great level. Sorry, not Saints, Giants. Who did the Giants play? Anyway, Giants, Crows. Sorry, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, a bunch of great games. So very exciting. Hawthorn, Geelong. How can I forget that? It's going to be a great game. 5 straight days of football coming up. So we're all very excited. Thank you so much to everybody for watching. Please like, please subscribe. We're going to be doing this all season. Thank you so much to everybody. Have a good day.